Texas, Florida. I know I've seen folks from New York, Ohio. I think we've got a friend, Kirk, from California. So that is a silver lining of doing these things on Zoom, is that we can welcome friends from all over the place who otherwise might not be able to attend if we're in person in Delaware. So again, thank you for being here. In a moment, I'm going to do some introductions. I'll be brief, and then I'll also give a brief overview of the program. But before we get started, please join me in the manner of friends in a moment of shared silence. Thank you, friends. And thank you again for joining us this evening. We are here to celebrate you, our incredibly loyal and generous donors. So we've got our leadership donors who made a leadership level gift in the past year with us this evening. We've got true blue donors who've made gifts to the school for 10 or more consecutive years. We've got folks that are members of our 1748 Society who have made a planned gift commitment to friends as a part of their estate. And I know a lot of folks on this call tonight check several, if not all of those boxes. And we thank each and every one of you for your commitment to the school, and your support just does so much to impact the work that we do at Friends. I want to thank, there are several members of our Board of Trustees who are on the call this evening. I won't go through and embarrass them and list them, but several of them are on there. If you just give a wave, we're grateful that you're here. I want to thank our trustees. This has been an incredibly challenging year, so we are grateful for your leadership and guidance as we have navigated all of the difficulties over the past 12 plus months. And on the topic of leadership and guiding us through challenging times, I want to thank our head of school, Ken Aldridge, who is also with us tonight. We'll have the opportunity to hear from our board clerk, David Tennant, and from Ken a little bit later. In addition to hearing from David and Ken, we are really fortunate to be joined by some teachers and some students this evening. This is something new that we've brought to this particular event, so we're really excited about that. We will have a chance to hear firsthand about all of the creative and innovative ways that our faculty and students have been teaching and learning together over the course of this past year. We will make sure to, in addition to some presentations from everybody, to have some time for questions and answers. But before we jump into the program, I do want to take a moment and thank our annual fund director, Sarah Driscoll, for putting together tonight's program. So Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to say a few words.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for all the wonderful notes back and forth when you RSVP'd, and I'm so glad that you can be here. I really do appreciate you, as the rest of the school does, for all the support that you give to help us do what we do every day.
Thank you, Sarah. And thanks for all you do, not only to help raise funds in support of the school, but to help build community and provide opportunities for fellowship like tonight's gathering. So I know folks are not here to listen to me, but you're here to listen to and engage with our teachers and our students. So as I mentioned, as we jump into that part of the program, we will have some time for questions after each of the faculty members have an opportunity to chat. And we'll also do that after we hear from our students. But if you'd rather not raise your hand and ask a question, feel free to pop those into the chat. Sarah will be monitoring that, and we will do our best to get to all of those questions. I think we've reversed the order a little bit, so we're going to pivot, and we're going to start with Beth Hill. Beth is a member of the Wilmington Friends School class of 2012. And is a lead teacher in our 5th grade. And so with that, I will turn it over, and Beth, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Chad. And thank you, Sarah, also for having me here this evening. And I'm scrolling through and I'm seeing faces that I'm familiar with, like, Mr. McGuire and, Megan, I know you already, but it's just kind of bringing me back to my 8th grade self with Mr. McGuire on the screen. So I want to make sure I make a good impression while I'm here. So thank you guys for having me this evening. So as I was invited here, I was really new into the system, or into Friends School this year, as far as teaching styles and a newer content I was teaching this year. So because of COVID and a smaller class, I was put on the lead to teach social studies. And first and foremost, I was like, how am I going to do this? What's the best way I can? And I know my best way is with projects. And And so what I did was, with all the various units that we did, we had to touch on slavery. And with our slavery unit, I thought to myself, how can I best show my students and to show the faculty and staff the importance of slavery, and to show them not just through a question and answer through a test, but also through something that showed empathy. And this kind of derives through our central questions we have, as far as, our 5th grade unit is a unit of study with 5th grade. How do we show, a troubled past, and how do we make sure that we are able to show empathy? And empathy was our biggest highlight for our slavery unit. So as I sift through and I was thinking about how are the ways that I could show or have my students can show slavery and through this unit, I created a virtual museum. And I told them the amount of museums that I have been through since in 5th grade, and from 6th grade, 7th grade, even going through the Holocaust Museum and every museum I've been through. I said that was the best way I was able to show or be able to feel empathy. With our 5th graders, what would have been our 3rd year going to the museum and looking at the 9/11, part of the museum, I explained to them that you want to be able to show something to the viewer that you can take away, that they can feel, in a sense, what that person may have gone through. And if not that feeling, but a deeper understanding of what it meant to be that person, or just to have an idea of what it means to be in that person's shoes. And a lot of times, it's lower school students, and especially with 5th grade, we really emphasize empathy. So what we did was we were able to find a website called Art Steps, and the students were able to create their own virtual museum without actually having to physically be in a museum because, of COVID. So in the course of 4 weeks, students were able to do research on any part of slavery they would like. They were able to design their museum. They were able to build the structures. They were able to bring their own artifacts. And the great part was they had different options. So they could have been creative. They could have been either independent or by themselves, or independent or with groups. They could have been a news anchor or a newscast. They could have done their own pictures with captions, or they could have done something more creative where they could have drew pictures of parts of slavery with their own captions. So it also emphasized not only the parts of slavery, but their type of learning and the type of student that they want to be. So a lot of kids who are really just, I want to be on the screen with Zoom or on the screen with the videos, they are allowed themselves to record themselves and to speak aloud. Or those kids who are maybe really shy and timid to be on screen, they were able to draw and provide those captions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just only a couple. Some of the videos that I would wanted to show you all this evening, I can't, because the video and the audio, they don't match up at the same time, and it would be very difficult for you to kind of get that depiction of slavery. So I'm showing you 2 different ones from 2 students of mine, my homeroom, and I feel as though they did an excellent job with this, along with their drawings and the captions, and as well as the pictures they chose to emphasize a piece of slavery that they wanted to show in their museum. So just bear with me in 1 second. Okay, so this first one is from my student. Her name is Sophia. And what she did was she wanted to compare the differences between, whoops, sorry about that. Hold on. She wanted to depict a lifestyle from a field slave and a house slave. So Sophia, she's very detailed and she's very artistic. And what she did was she drew these pictures from hand, the clothes that slaves would have worn in the fields. So she drew a hat, she drew the kind of clothes, and then she drew the jumpers, and she provided here of the picture with the caption. So she said, field slaves were generally given one set of clothes that had to last them a year. These clothes were similar in style to what any colonial farmer would wear when working. So this was her idea of what they would have worn. As you can see, I can easily navigate this museum. I can go forward and back and to the side, and I'm just only using my right, left, up, and down arrows. And I can kind of visualize myself being in a museum as if I were physically there. Some of these pictures they got from Google, where they were able to take it, and then she and herself would reword what her interpretation were and her understanding of these photos here. So So again, she was able to interpret how field slaves and how slaves were treated. So if you were someone in the museum that if she were to create, she would want you to see exactly how this picture would mean to you. And it's really creative how in her mind, she set up this museum and she placed the photos where she needed to. Sorry, I'm going all over the place. But she, again, drew this. She wanted to put photos specifically in her museum. So each photo was placed exactly where she needed to emphasize where the photos need to be placed for it to make sense. And as you can go along through the museum, you'll be able to see how it transitioned from the house slaves, or I'm sorry, the field slaves from the house slaves. So that was her topic, was that. My other student, Mumbi, she chose to do, I'm sorry, here we go. Just a specific part of the shackles. And each shackle she decided was something specific to say what it may have looked like. So she and herself, she said, okay, I want to use her artistic styles. I'm going to draw something and I'm going to provide a caption as to what this drawing means. So she said that this is a drawing of a regular slave shackle. As you can see, they were usually at rest and they had the same two loops. That was her interpretation. If she were someone in her museum, she would probably want to provide a different picture, such as this, as she has here, to get a better understanding. And what this does is it allows the student to be, it allows them to be really creative, but it also gives them the responsibility to be responsible of their learning, to understand what are you taking away from this project, how are you going to define it, and how are you going to create it, and how are you leaving the viewer to understand about this project that you have learned on these 4 weeks. I'll stop sharing my screen there. My kids absolutely love this project. They were able to be free will with however they needed to. They were able to design how they want to, depending on the wall space, how the the pictures they use. Some of my kids, again, they use videos. They use a lot of formatting and captions, and the amount of focus and attention that went along with this project allowed them to understand that if they were to do another project, this is another way of them to show what they have learned throughout the student. And I know I have only a short amount of time to describe this, but this was something I was really proud of with my students, and they really enjoyed every minute of this. And hopefully, if any of you would love to view any of the other topics, I'd be happy to share them with Tina for you to share out through the website or through email for you all to look at the different types of topics that they all talked about. I know next unit we have our immigration unit setting up, where they will actually interview someone that they know, or someone in our WFS community who is an immigrant to the United States, and there they will make a narrative on a QR code, so it'll be an audio to describe that person's travels from whatever country to the United States, and that's something I'm also looking forward to as well. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Beth. Really appreciate you sharing that. Really powerful stuff. Any questions for Beth about what was just presented, or any sort of general questions before we jump into our next presenter? I didn't see anything in the chat room, Sarah. Yes, Rick.
So Beth, did the students have those kind of skills to do this, or did you have to work with an IT teacher or train them on, or are they just that proficient?
Luckily, as it says, the younger the proficient and, the more tech savvy they are. I'm young, but I'm not as tech savvy. So luckily they were able to do their own research to figure out how to navigate the website. The website is very basic, but our kids themselves, they know how to work, against the grain. They know how to find their own things. So if they knew to add windows or walls or doors or, whatever, they were able to do it. And of course, me checking in, I understood half the work, but the other part was astounding, because I'm thinking to myself, how did you do that? And I've created a mock of my museum. So, I mean, like I said, the younger, the more tech savvy it is, that they're able to figure this out. And they were also teaching other students as well along with this process.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And again, as Beth mentioned, and thanks for that offer, Beth, just reach out to Tina or to Sarah or to me if you're interested in anything else that Beth had discussed, and we'd be happy to make that connection. So thanks again for being here tonight, Beth. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over now to our other faculty presenter of the evening, Megan Hagenbarth, who teaches science and math in our middle school and now knows every nook and cranny of the state of Delaware after her travels today. So I'll turn it over to you, Megan.
That is for sure. So yeah, it's been a year, things have changed a lot. Jan Jones, I see you there. You're lucky you didn't go through this year. It's been a toughie, but it's really, I like to say that the middle school has 8 outcome objectives that we like, things that we want our middle school students to learn on top of the academic work, right? We want them to have organizational skills, time management skills, be creative, be engaged both in class with their learning and with participation, be responsible, mindful, collaboration, and of course have resilience. So what a year to test all of these skills on the middle school faculty, right? So as a middle school faculty member, we needed to be more creative. We needed to really be organized and manage our time and be resilient, right? And engage with each other and collaborate on how are we going to teach what I lovingly call my roomies and my zoomies, the kids in my room and the kids who are in Zoom. So I figure 2 sets of classes each class, right? Because I've got the kids who are on my computer and I have the kids who are sitting in front of me. And so I need to keep both of them engaged. And so luckily for us at Friends, we have an incredible platform, which is our website. And so I'm going to share my screen so that you can see my website. Just let me know if you don't see it. So does everyone see my topic tiles right here? Okay, so I just want to do this real fast. All right, so you can see this is for my math class. I teach 6th grade math. And so every day when the kids come into class, there's a sheet of paper on their desk that's what they should be working on right as they come into class. So while I'm taking attendance and handing back papers from the day before, they are engaged in learning. Well, I also have to make sure that I upload that and have what's called the topic tile on the website, which is my math warm-ups. Of course, if you want to come and see in my classroom, you can come on my Zoom link. Are you smarter than a 5th grader is something we do in the beginning of the year. But what I started to do even before COVID was I made a video of every concept that I teach so that if students, I call it the yeah syndrome. You're in class and you're like, yeah, I totally get it. I don't need to write anything down because I get it. And then you get home and you're just like, what was Mrs. Hagenbarth talking about in class today? And so I would have these videos that they could look at when they got home to help them with their homework. And so when we got to chapter 4, so right around Thanksgiving time, I started something new where students could work at their own pace. They could apply for what I called the flipped classroom, which is that they would watch videos that I had created on their own and then do guided practice, then do the homework, and then they would self-correct the guided practice, but hand in the homework. So I would grade it. So I would know whether they were understanding what was going on, but they could move really quickly through the material so that they could then, move at the pace that they were ready. And then what I do is what I found through the years is that this self-paced classroom works really well for some students and not as well for other students. So in the flipped classroom, I ask students to apply and I ask them, are you a student who learns new concepts independently? Do you learn new concepts with little help? Demonstrate strong self-advocacy skills. Do you ask Mrs. Hagenbarth for help or do you just pretend that you don't have problems? Demonstrate the ability to keep your materials and papers organized. Are you a self-starter? Able to maintain your focus? So these are really executive functioning skills. And what I found are kids who have strong skills, they succeed in here with this method. And if they aren't as organizationally proficient, then sometimes they struggle. And so I want them to be aware of that. So sometimes I'll say, listen, I'm going to let you try it. And if you're successful, you can work at your own pace and do it in this format and be more independent, which they all love, because you can work it out that you never have homework. You can work really conscientiously during class, and then you don't have to do work at home, which is great. I'm totally fine with that. But if you start to slide, then we need to think about maybe you do need to have homework, or maybe you need to be an OG, one of the originals who still gets taught by me in front of the classroom. And so students decide whether, with my help and guidance, whether they want to be a flipper or not. But either way, another one. So this is the chapter overview for chapter 7, which we have just completed. And as you can see, it has a prior knowledge. I give a pre-test, and then here's the video on the skills if you didn't quite get all of those skills. And then there are 5 sections in chapter 7, and you'll see that they're all broken up into videos, guided practice, video guided practice, homework, concept journals, and then there's a quiz, and then there's a test, and this is optional work that can help with extra credit and things like that. Every one of these videos, if you click on it, opens up to a video of me talking them through the skill. And whether they decide to go at their own pace or whether they decide to move at the same pace as the class, the videos are very helpful. They help kids who maybe are my Zoomies and I'm glitching during class, like the Wi-Fi cuts in and out, they miss something, this happens, they get kicked out of the Zoom, they come back, I'm muted when they come back. I don't know I'm muted. And they're going, Mrs. Hagenbarth, I can't hear you. And I can't hear them. And so I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then all of a sudden someone's like, Mrs. Hagenbarth, they can't hear you. So I don't know how much they've missed. So I can always say, hey, I was talking about this. You can go back and watch this video. And so I found that having all of these videos to help them learn their content has been incredibly helpful. I've also found that being mindful of how we're all feeling, how it's all going, what is most necessary for the class. Like sometimes what's most necessary is for all of us to just take a couple of deep breaths and say, okay, you guys, let's figure out what's most important. I think what's most important is that we work on this today, right? So let's take a deep breath. It's okay if you didn't finish that homework because you're really confused. Understanding this material is most important. So let's go through it again. So just kind of keeping in mind where the middle schooler is and where the learning is most needed. And the other thing is, when you teach middle schoolers, there's got to be a little bit of fun. So one of my favorite activities we just had was my eggquation hunt. So I have little plastic eggs. Inside, I put an equation and I hide them. And then they have to go searching for the egg, find the egg, open it up, do the equation, run to me with the answer. I say, yes, you can have a piece of candy now, or no, go find another egg and see if you can get that one. And so it was a lot of fun. If I had asked them to do as many equations as possible in class, I don't know how many equations they would, maybe, 6, 7. You give them an equation hunt and there was candy involved, they were like, give me 20 equations, I'll do as many as you want, So it keeps them motivated and excited about learning. So making sure you throw in a little fun keeps keeps all of us sane during this time in this crazy year.
Indeed. I remember getting the heads up about that by email the other day. So don't, if
Yeah,
you see
'cause I
plastic eggs.
I said, please don't collect those eggs that you see. That happened one year. A very conscientious groundsman picked up all the eggs because he's like, who left all these eggs out here? I'm like, I come outside, I'm like, I see you have all the eggs in your arms. So this year I sent out a message like, please don't move the eggs.
Funny. Well, thank you for sharing all of those details. Really, I've heard a lot about your flipped classroom, but this is the first time I've really gotten to learn about that firsthand. So thank you. Any questions for Megan before we move into our
My
students?
dog safe.
I don't have a question, but I did want to thank Megan. My daughter, Kemble, has been lucky enough to be with Megan this year, and it really has been a fabulous year of math. And, it's interesting because it was not an area that she enjoyed in the past. And this year she's really been excited and proud of herself. And it's just been a really good experience to watch. So thank you.
That's great.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
sharing that.
I'm
I
so
think,
glad.
I think we've got a question from Janet.
Yes, first of all, Megan, I am so impressed with the amount of individualized and independent learning you've introduced the kids to. And I'm very surprised you're not gray-haired at this particular point in time.
Hide it well.
The old dye bottle, right? What you are covering very, very well here is the amount of time, effort, and energy you've obviously invested in this, and I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thanks, Jan. That means a lot to me because Jan and I used to be co-workers, and I always aspire to be as good as Jan.
And one thought from me, hi Megan, Susan James Johnson. I was going to kind of say something similar to Jan, which is if anybody thinks that online education doesn't require a full investment from the educator and then some, it's not just flip on a video screen if it's done well. So props to you. I know you've been working on this for years. You were one of the leader of doing this way before anybody ever heard of anything called COVID. And the other thing I was going to say, both my kids benefited from your teaching. They're now both in graduate school, and I can confirm that the yeah syndrome, it continues and it persists. It's a real thing, even among adults.
It's true.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you again, Megan. Really appreciate you being here. I know it was a day. It's been a day, it's been a week, it's been a year, and we appreciate you spending some time with us this evening. Really enlightening to hear the perspectives of two of our really incredible teachers. And we are equally excited to hear from several students who have been kind enough to spend a little time with us this evening. So on the call tonight, we have two current seniors, Sophie Mullen and Luke Munch, and a member of our current junior class, Hannah Carter. So I have a few queries to guide our discussion. And as I mentioned, we'll have some time to ask some questions from the audience as well. But before we jump into that conversation, it would be great if each of you could just introduce yourselves, let us know what grade you were in when you came to Friends, and what kinds of extracurriculars you're involved in, sports, clubs, performing arts, etc. So we'll start with Hannah Carter.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah. I'm a current junior. I came to Friends my first year of preschool, 2 years old, and I'm involved with the musical. I'm in both jazz band and chamber singers. I clerk spirit committee and the Black Student Union.
Thank you, Hannah. Next, Luke Munch.
Hello, everyone. I'm Luke Munch. I am a senior. I'm not technically a lifer because I came in first grade, but I like to consider myself one. Outside of academics, I am on the cross-country team. I'm a captain for them. I'm also the clerk of the Be Positive Foundation, which is a cancer foundation founded in Wilmington, Delaware. And I am a member of Best Buddies.
Excellent. Thank you, Luke. And last but certainly not least, Sophie Mullen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sophie Mullen. I came to Friends a little bit later in 6th grade. Had the pleasure of having Miss Heckenworth as my teacher my first year. In terms of school, I'm a business clerk, so I work on the agenda team with Luke and Hannah coming up. And then I'm also a clerk of Link Crew, which is our orientation club, member of RAC, and our environmental club, Fridays for Future. And I also play volleyball and I manage the baseball team.
Thank you. Thank you all. And as you probably all heard, and this is something I learned when I first got to Friends almost 10 years ago, our kids do everything. We don't have either or. We have both end kids that are just involved in so many ways in the life of the school. So again, thank you guys for being here. So I'm just going to pose a couple of queries and hopefully get some dialogue going. And then, as I said, we'll have a little bit of time, I hope, for some questions from the folks that are here tonight. So the first question I want to pose, when you look back at 2020 and 2021, what do you think you will remember most from this time? I'd love to hear from all of you. So. Don't all jump up at once.
I'll go ahead and start.
Thanks, Hannah.
Really quickly, before I get into this, I want to say that Miss Hagenbarth's flipped classroom thing really does work. I was maybe part of the inaugural class of that. I'm not quite sure, but I really enjoyed it, and especially like the egg hunt. I wasn't really someone who was into math, but Miss Hagenbarth like really lit that fire for me. So anyway, on to the actual question. Something that really stood out to me in this past year was just the way the community was so bonded throughout this time. Obviously, it was really terrible, everything that's been going on, but there was such an active effort from students and parents and faculty and alumni to join together. It really did make a difference. I got a concussion 4 days before the world shut down. So being on screen all day, all week was not something that was recommended to me, but teachers made it really easy for me and they accommodated, and it was just so sweet. And then everything that's been shifted or modified this year has obviously been hard, but there's been an active effort to do the best that we can and make people feel included. Like this past weekend, I was supposed to go to prom, and unfortunately, I was identified as a close contact for someone who contracted COVID, so I had to stay home. But so many people from our community sent me emails and texts and called me and brought me blondies and flowers and all sorts of lovely things that just someone went as far as to bring balloons from the actual prom, so I felt included. And it's just so clear that there is such love in this community regardless of the time. And it's really inspiring, and it makes me happy and proud to be here.
Thank you for sharing that, Hannah. Luke or Sophie?
I guess I can follow up from that. I'll try at least. I think, well, one thing, because we're talking about Miss Hagenbarth, I wasn't part of Flipped Classroom, but I remember being in math club, Miss Hagenbarth, reading a nonfiction math book that might have been the most captivating book I've ever read. But anyway, on to the prompt. It was called The Number Devil. It was a fantastic read. But anyway, I think one thing about this year is how perseverant the faculty and administration was, but also the students. The fact that it became the fact that it changed so quickly never got anyone too down. Like there was never an idea that we'd give up. It just, there was a new normal. And that new normal for me, and I think for teachers, it might have been hard to adjust to, but it kept growing on us. There was never a period of like being stagnant. And I think that's really impressive that we just keep moving forward and we keep trying to improve on Zoom learning, which is definitely different than in-person learning, and how things are kind of changing, especially with this year. And as we head towards the spring with more vaccinations, there's more of a sense of community learning at school instead of over Zoom, but that transition has still been very positive. And throughout the whole year, whether we've been on Zoom or not, it's had an upward trajectory.
Thanks for that, Luke. I think that's the first time I've ever heard somebody describe a nonfiction math book as the most captivating book they've ever read. Maybe that's a summer read, Ken. I don't know. We'll have to get that title from Megan. Thanks for that, Luke. Sophie, anything to add?
Yeah, so I was thinking, and I wanted to make sure I thought about this before I said anything, but I think my favorite thing about the past year is how our community has grown together. And I think at first I was really scared about what Zoom learning was going to be. I tend to like zone out a bit when I'm staring at a computer all day. I get headaches and I'm like not enthusiastic. But I think there were a lot of things that I was expecting that never happened. Like we never had long lectures where we had to sit there and just, nod our heads and pretend to listen. It was hands-on learning from outside the classroom, which was really interesting. I also loved how it kind of fostered a new creativity. You couldn't necessarily rely on people seeing people in the hallways to say hello. You had to, reach out, make those connections yourself. And also with teachers, I started this year with a new teacher that I hadn't had before. We hadn't really crossed paths before, but it kind of made it a little bit hard for me to feel confident reaching out to him for help. But without a doubt, he stepped in, completely caught me off guard. I felt very comfortable. And, our English teacher for me has been a great inspiration, Miss McManus. And she's was able to send me tons of resources for me to be able to express myself creatively. Um, and I'm just really thankful for that. So I'll always be grateful for friends adapting so quickly.
Thank you for sharing that, Sophie. I'll be mindful of time because I certainly want to make sure there's some time for folks on the screen to ask questions. So I just have one more query for all of you. We've talked a lot about the past year and even years in the past of your experiences at Friends. I want to shift and think a little bit about the future. And this is a really broad question, so you can answer it however you'd like. But what is your hope for the future? And that could be your hope for your own future, for our community, for our school. So whatever you'd like to share with this group, I'd love to hear from you.
All right, I'll go.
Thank you, Hannah.
I have two things. So the first is that, like Sophie said, people have gone out of their way to bond during this time, and I hope that as things return to normal, people don't lose that, because I think it's easy to have those like school friends, the casual ones that you occasionally see or occasionally send a text to, but I hope that we remember just how easy it is to bond and connect, and that we value face-to-face interaction, and continue to do so. And the second is that I think our school does a great job on focusing on unity and togetherness, but at times it can feel like an erasure of your identity. So I hope that as we learn more, especially about diversity and equality, we find ways to appreciate the parts of us that bring us together, but also the parts that are different, and understand and value that each person has an individual identity, because that's something that is very important to me especially, and I think that our school is on its way to doing that, and I hope we continue in that pattern.
That's great. Thank you for that, Hannah. Luke or Sophie?
I think that I hope that we continue to grow as a community, and that's a really broad statement, but Luke and I are in the same advisory, and I think this year has been my favorite year of all advisories because we were kind of thrown in and we weren't a super close advisory at the start. And through, those mandatory Zoom meetings for advisory, we got to know each other pretty quick and playing games over Zoom and making sure that we were really close in an advisory, and our advisor did an amazing job, Miss O'Brien, doing that. But I hope that advisories become more like friend groups in the future, as well as, a support system. I use that probably daily to have someone to, bounce ideas off of or vent to. I think that's something that's underrated in our community, and I hope it keeps growing.
You're here. Thanks, Sophie. Luke, anything to add?
I think what Hannah and Sophie said really ring true to me. One thing that I sort of want to talk about is personally, like I want to continue applying these Quaker values past Friends, because I think being in this community, it fosters that great strength. So I think my hope for Friends is in the future that it keeps giving kids that gift or that option to like learn these Quaker practices, the spices, and really understand what that means. And I think that is I want kids to learn what Quakerism is, just like I did. And then I don't want to lose that when I leave this community, unfortunately, when I head off to college. Hopefully I'll be coming back here, and maybe my kids will even attend Wilmington Friends or another Friends school. But I think it's such a powerful community. So my hope is that I don't lose that sense of Quaker faith, and that Friends continues instilling it so deeply as it did for me.
That's great. Thank you for saying that. And we'll make sure that you stay connected, all of you. Tina's on the mission as the alumni director. So you guys may be far away geographically, but you will never be far away from us spiritually, and you will always be welcome home. So thank you guys, really appreciate it. I do want to open it up and see if there are any questions from folks on the screen that have for Luke or Sophie or Hannah. Any questions? Yeah, Sarah.
Softball for Sophie and Luke. Where are you going next year or this year for college?
I'll be going to Union College in New York next fall.
I will probably be attending Amherst College in Massachusetts.
All right. I went to Holyoke.
All right. Excellent.
Thank you.
So I'm curious how you found transitioning to doing stuff on Zoom. When I had to start doing that for work, I found myself so constantly distracted because I've got my workstation, I got all these, Slack windows and all these other things open, and it's just so distracting that I could never quite seem to get focused. So I'm wondering if that was a problem for you or whether you're just so used to being on screen that it wasn't hard.
Great question.
I can start this one. For me, I'm a kind of person who likes to fiddle. And so the first week of school, I was rearranging, cleaning my desk almost daily, changing my outfit. And it was just a whole mess. My parents were making fun of me for it. But I found that when I cleaned off my workspace and I didn't have anything other than my study materials, my computer, maybe a charger, and I left my phone, away in the room, I felt much more centered. And I think that the teachers definitely made that a priority to feel like we were settled. And so I found that, being in a room, not necessarily like by myself isolated, because that would probably be not productive, but somewhere just clean and still where I could focus on my work definitely helped.
I found it kind of, I'm gonna be human. I found it kind of amusing, like just seeing your friends like in other squares. So almost my friends were distracting, just like nothing they did, just sometimes you have close friends and they make you laugh. So sometimes I had to learn how to keep composure, quite honestly. But I mastered that skill after being on Zoom for a number of hours. But I think, yes, it was a learning curve, but I think it's taught everyone from first graders to 12th graders like a lot of discipline. And we also want to be successful. So you can't just keep distracting yourself. Like at some point you're going to realize what you need to do. And I think a lot of us found that quite quickly.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. There was definitely a learning curve. And I think something that helped was that the teachers showed us that they were human. And they would send messages saying, look, this is a little too much for me. I'm going to put up an assignment and we're all just going to have a day and be able to sort of calm back down and return to center. We'll do it again tomorrow. And that helped me because obviously everyone was extremely scared, especially right after March 13th. So seeing the teachers feel that too, but then do their best to come back and teach us and continue doing their jobs. Whether that was one of my teachers would send out a schedule every week with exactly what we'd be doing, so we know when to not get on Zoom. One of them would play it by ear, which was, just his thing, and that was fine. But I definitely think that it was important for them to show us that they felt this too, and that it wasn't, irrational for us to be scared, but that we were going to continue and we were going to set a new standard and do the best that we could. And it made it easier to get through the rest of the year knowing that they felt the way that I did.
Wonderful. I want to thank you, our students and our teachers again, for being here. And thanks everybody for the great questions. Supporting our students or our teachers, that's what tonight's gathering, that's what this is all about. We are so proud of the incredible work that you're doing in the classroom, on the stage, on the playing fields, and in our greater community. And we know that you're all going to do incredible things in the future. And we look forward to watching you guys continue to grow and welcoming you home anytime you want to come back to visit. I know that for our teachers on the screen, they've probably got grading and prep and all sorts of stuff to do, and our students probably have homework. You are more than welcome to stay. We just have a couple more folks that we're going to hear from, but if you also need to jump off and take care of all of those things, we understand. But I want to thank you all and give you a round of applause for being with us tonight. Thank you so much. This was a really, really special evening. So thank you. So with that, I want to turn things over to our board clerk, David Tennant, who would like to say a few words.
Yes, so thank you all. It's a great pleasure to be here. And, you know, Ken and Darcy Rademacher and Susan Kelly approached me, I think by design or by coincidence or by good fortune, but they approached me in January of 2020 about being the replacing Susan as the board clerk. And I agreed because for tonight is that perfect example of why I agreed, because just hearing from the students and the teachers just makes me really, really proud to be a part of this great school. I had 2 children who are alums, and the school made such a difference in their lives that I really wanted to give back to the school in my own board service. So if they asked me in March 2020, probably would have been a different outcome. No, not exactly, but I certainly wasn't counting on a pandemic and then a whole series of other crises of the week, I would say, as we went through it. But fortunately, Susan Kelly is one of the most amazing people that I've met. She was very helpful, provided a lot of guidance early on. You don't do your first solo flight in a thunderstorm, to use an aviation analogy. So the very first board meeting that I clerked, I asked her to be my co-pilot just to help me through, because they were this was July of 2020, which was a pretty tumultuous time for the school. So that was, but then once I, got the hang of flying it solo, Susan graciously bowed out. I still talk with her frequently for advice. She's been a tremendous inspiration and hard shoes to follow. And I want to thank all of you donors. One of the reasons why my job is easier as the board clerk is that we have such great donors and great people in the Wilmington Friends community who really care about the school, and they show their care in their gifts and their plans. So thank you again. We all, speaking on behalf of all the trustees, the ones who are here on this call, as well as the ones who are on the board, we all thank you very much. It makes such a difference. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without your support. So we thank you very much. Just kind of some highlights for me for the year. After we really started, sorting out a way to get through the pandemic and the other crises that we dealt with. The first real highlight was the commencement in July. That was, we were able to pull that off. We had an actual in-person commencement in the peak of the summer wave of COVID, but it was done very, intelligently, very well done. Probably the biggest thing was it took so long because we had such great social distancing for someone to walk up to the podium. It took quite a few steps, much different than if everyone was sitting close together. But it was really thrilling to be back with everyone and to see what those seniors, the 2020 seniors, their resilience, their optimism despite all that was happening around them was very rewarding. Another real highlight was when we started, so much planning, seeing the staff work, seeing the administration work to plan and be able to start bringing the students back in the hybrid mode and the different modes that we did was really encouraging as a board. I know I speak for the other trustees that we were really happy to see how we were doing it. I have, other colleagues and neighbors who their students weren't at Wilmington Friends, asked me many times, how are you guys doing that? What's you guys are really doing it well. So it was very rewarding the way the school responded and the programs they put together. And probably one of the biggest highlights actually just happened this past Monday at our April board meeting. And we asked the division heads to kind of give their own review of the previous year and their own take on it. And listening to them and what they did and what they were doing and their appreciation of the teachers and how the teachers really rised up to the challenge and provided a really good education and a great experience for the students. And then also the students themselves, and hearing them, you know, compliment the students. It was very, very uplifting. It was probably one of the best board meetings I've been in, and I've been on the board. I'm starting my third. I've been on the board a long time. So it was very, very uplifting. Just very similar to the presentations you heard tonight from the students and the teachers. We also heard similar type presentations, very encouraging from our division heads. So that was a great highlight. And that also kind of segues me into what I'm looking forward to. I don't want to sugarcoat it. There's some real challenges in independent school education. There's the demographics are changing. You know, we are very excited at all the things that are happening at Friends, but we're also, you know, we don't have our head in the sand. There's some big challenges out there. And, you know, every time there's challenges, there's also opportunities. And what we need to do as a school, as a whole team and a community, is figure out what those opportunities are and capitalize them and use what makes Friends positive, you know, to keep the school vibrant and growing. For example, what we heard again from Megan, but also from the division head, the way the flipped classroom where the homework is being done in the classroom and the learning is being done outside of the classroom. There's a whole host of things that the education and the technology isn't just exactly, you know, it's enhancing education. And if we as a school and a community can figure out what we have to offer and how we can make, capitalize on that and capitalize on our independence as a school, that we had the flexibility to offer a flipped classroom. I think there's a lot of real exciting stuff that we can do. You know, anytime there's a lot of disruption, and I think COVID was a huge disruption. Anytime there's disruption, there's opportunity. And we had to be smart to jump on that opportunity. And I think we've got the team to do it. So.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate you sharing all those and sharing your excitement. There's a lot of challenge for sure, but a lot of opportunity on our horizon. And as I said earlier tonight, we're very grateful for all that you and your fellow trustees do in support of all of us. So thank you for that. As the culminating part of our program, I want to turn things over to our head of school, Ken Aldridge, who would like to say a few words. Ken?
Thank you, Chad. Hello again, everyone. First and foremost, we want to thank you for your continued support and stewardship of the school. Your commitment to us affirms our mission, and we get to hear great things about what our teachers are doing and what our students experience. And a lot of that is made through your generosity, your philanthropy, and service to the school. So thank you. As David talked, it's been a year of transition. I'm remembering when David said yes, and we were just going through all of the challenges of the spring and summer. My constant refrain to David was, David, it's rarely like this. And Susan and Darcy would echo, and then at some point we just realized there was no point in saying that because there was always some new challenge on the horizon. But it has been a remarkable transition, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to work with David as the clerk. As you heard from the teachers and you heard from the students, it's been an extraordinary 13 months. At Wilmington Friends, and needing to make it the pivot to full remote, full virtual. I can remember this time last year being engaged with a few teachers in conversation, wondering what spring was going to look like as we were heading into spring break. And I remember sharing with them that I just wasn't sure how long we were going to be away from school. And there was some wonder as to was I really paying attention to all of this, or was I making a big fuss out of nothing because everyone just thought we would be back after spring break. Little did we know we would not return to any of our academic classrooms until this fall when all of that happened. But we pivoted, and in part because we were one-to-one laptop school, that was a very easy pivot for us to do in the spring. And one of our early learnings through all of this was some of our younger students and their families were actually challenged by being remote. And so we made the decision last spring to go fully one-to-one across the entire school. So some of you may not know that, but we are now fully one-to-one, iPads in preschool through 3rd grade and laptops 4th through 12th grade for the entire school, so that we can manage remote learning in addition to enhanced learning at school. And one of the things that, or just today on a what they called a virtual head of school retreat with the Association of Delaware Valley Independent Schools, one of the keynote speakers talked about how are you using technology? Are you using it as a method for delivery, as a method of enhancing learning, or both? And I'm proud to say I believe we're doing it as both. And so, you know, right now we're using Zoom as a delivery method. It's a piece of technology, but we're also looking at different apps and other things that we can use on our software. And a lot of that had to do with teachers doing extensive professional development over the summer. So our teachers who thought they were going to have a rather quiet summer, or were actually hoping for a quiet summer, learned that they were going to have to do some additional PD to figure out how they were going to deliver both an in-class curriculum and a virtual remote curriculum. And I am so incredibly thankful and proud of how our faculty and staff have just managed throughout this year. Those of you who don't know, we have been in person since the opening of school. We've had different models where we were doing a bit of hybrid in the fall up until November, but we have been in person with the exception of one virtual week since November. Our lower school students are in 4.5 days a week, and our upper school and middle school students are in 4 days. We have a virtual Wednesday. And so right now, we will continue to do that. It works, but we also know we want to open next year, excuse me, with full 5 days. In addition to just thinking about how we deliver programs in this age of COVID, last summer also presented some challenges for us to think about who we are as a school around diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. And so many of you know we've been bringing in outside consultants to do some work with us. Trina Gary from Brown Gary Associates has done an immersive climate assessment with us as a school. We're expecting her report later this spring that in many ways will just sort of be a good audit of how we're doing as a school and what are the things we ought to be thinking about on our horizon. One of the things I'm very proud that we've been doing this year is some work around anti-racism that's been a grassroots effort by our faculty and staff. And there's what we're calling READ journal groups. I've been meeting with great frequency throughout the year. We just had a session, multiple sessions yesterday. And we've also been testing this with outside groups. And as we have tested it with outside groups and just sort of opening dialogue, opening conversation with one another, there's been additional interest in continuing those. So please know that we will probably be doing something with alums and other members of our community. So feel free to be engaged with that work as you see it moving forward. And then I don't know if Lisa is still on, but when under Lisa's tenure, we were able to celebrate our 250th anniversary. And we are now on the cusp of celebrating our 275th anniversary for the school. So Lisa, you're welcome to come back and help in any way with that. That is an exciting time for us as a school to think about what we're going to do and celebrate the school in 2023 and 2024. And to that end, one of the things that we have been talking about has been the long-term financial health and sustainability of the school. And we've been doing an endowment campaign to continue to build our endowment. That is one way to ensure that our school will continue to be healthy and vibrant well beyond the time any of us are still connected to the school. And so, as you might imagine, for that campaign, in honor of our 275th, we have an ambitious goal to raise $27.5 million to bring new money into our endowment. And as we think about what we want to support, first and foremost, any school will talk about who's in the classroom matters, both in terms of the students and families you can attract to the school to support them, being there at the school through financial aid, but also who's leading those classrooms and our faculty and staff by offering competitive compensation and also competitive professional development opportunities. So those are two major components of what we're thinking about in our endowment campaign. Service learning has been growing with significant interest at the school, both in terms of domestic programs and international programs through our Quest program. So we're going to continue to do that. We have been just fortunate to be able to offer sort of aid to lower the cost for any student who wants to pursue any of our Quest service learning opportunities, but then also to offer financial aid to students who want to be able to do that. The last international trip we had was to South Africa. So our service learning and those things, we're actually going to go to Acadia this summer for a trip, but our international trips are on pause for now. And the other thing that gets me really excited is over the past several years, we've had our faculty and staff engaged in design thinking. And this was something that grew out of the interest of one teacher. And he recruited teachers across the school in multiple divisions, as well as administrators. And over the past several years, we've been able to send multiple teams of teachers to do design thinking and bring that back to the school. So with my background in science, I just love that we have teachers who are thinking about this sort of research and design element of education and pedagogical approach, and that they're sort of going out there, trying something and see if it sticks. When I was watching Magic School Bus a lot with my children growing up as Miss Frizzle, let's get messy, let's see what works. And so I really want to foster that in our faculty and staff. It's sort of let's see what works and what inspires us and we can bring back to friends. And so thinking about this continued idea of research and design is something we want to cultivate for our faculty and staff. So it's been an incredible time in our school. Just the amount of learning that we've done. There's no question in the independent school world, we're all wondering what the new normal will be. We know a normal back to 2019 is unlikely for our schools because we were all sort of forced, if you will, to pivot in such incredible ways in such a short period of time. But I imagine this will be the kind of thing now that's going to be happening in schools, is that there will be some type of consistent push for schools to reimagine themselves, to think about what's next and what's new, at the same time constantly staying anchored to their original mission and core. And that will present a new era for schools. Schools typically have not had to move so quickly as we did over the past 13 months. And I just don't foresee any sort of let up on that. And that doesn't scare me. It may sound doom and gloom, but it doesn't scare me. And it doesn't scare me because I have witnessed over the past 13 months what this community can do. You heard it from our students, you heard it from our faculty, and just sort of reimagining new things. The delivery method may be different. So if I think about Beth's Slavery Museum, I almost felt like that was a CAD presentation as I saw that. Those are fifth graders doing that. Megan's talking about flipped curriculum, and she was doing that well before COVID, as you heard some of the people talk about. And that's just sort of scratching the surface of things that we have already been doing at the school. Some of you may know we're part of the Malone School online network. So our students were already engaged in learning remotely from other educators or even our own educators from across the country. Luke Munch has been part of the MSON classes for a number of years. So as a school, I think we're in a very good position to pivot to what I see as this next era in schools. And so I'm incredibly proud and feel humbled and honored to be head of school as we move through this. And I feel very blessed that I know that we have a community of people like you who support the school through your stewardship. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for your support of the school. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So Kirk here, you're talking about, going forward that, we'll not go back to the way it was in 2019. And I'm curious, I mean, do you think there's going to be, well, more remote learning, but students will be in place and it'll be more being able to do remote with people that are not part of the campus community, but others? Is that where you're seeing it going?
Yeah, I mean, I think schools will have to answer the question of what remote access will look like in schools. I don't think schools can go back to saying we can't offer remote learning, but I do think schools can say we know when we can do in person, we have learned that works best, and any of our teachers will tell you that. It is very hard. I really liked Megan's talk about her roomies and her zoomies. It's the first time I've heard Megan use those terms this year. But that sort of teaching in that moment where you're doing both an interactive teaching to the students who are present in the classroom and interactive to students via Zoom is challenging teaching in those modalities. So I think schools will need to figure out what remote access will look like. And I know we're going to continue to offer that. I think the other question is long-term for schools. Would you offer a remote-only option? That's a different question altogether. And I think schools will wrestle with that. On that workshop earlier today, one of the things that was mentioned is that day schools, like Friends, are now wrestling with global instruction. We have a student right now. We have a student in Florida right now. We also have a student in China this year. And so if you can just imagine his schedule relative to ours, and when he has to get up and how he has to manage his Wilmington Friends school day. And so I know we will continue to have students in some remote capacity moving forward. Other questions?
No, if it's a question, but I can't resist.
Okay, Lisa.
Doing congratulations. We've been in touch enough through this journey, Ken, that I knew you guys were doing great things, and it was so fun to see that tonight, along with a lot of dear friends. This is such a treat to see so many people in those little Zoom squares who've meant so much in my life. But I have to tell you, I'm just so touched and inspired by your ambition, the board's ambition for the school at the 275th, that, in this year when some of us were holding on, to get through the day, you guys are thinking about the next 275 years of a great school. And I'm so touched and grateful. What good work you all are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for that, Lisa. Ken, I think you answered them all in your remarks.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all that, Ken. Really appreciate it. And again, I want to thank everybody we ran a little long, but it was such great conversation. So I hope everybody enjoyed being with us as much as we enjoyed having you. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for the many ways that each of you supports the school and helps to move Friends forward. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon, whether that's in person, maybe someday soon, or at another virtual event. But in the meantime, I hope everyone continues to stay healthy and safe, and we will hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Great program, Chad. Thank you.
Yeah.